Did you know that different types of cheeses require different storage methods? That's why in this video, we're going to guide you on how to store different kinds of cheeses to help keep them tasting fresh for as long as possible and to help to prevent spoilage. Now, firstly, what are the basics when storing cheese? Now, I came across this in my hunt for wisdom in the cheese world, and it's so catchy and logical that I have to share it. It's called the 3 C's of cheese storage. Meaning, regardless of the kind of cheese that you're storing, always ensure that it is kept clean, cool, and covered. Now, keep your cheese clean by keeping it away from other foods and things that have strong flavors and odors, since they can quickly absorb the flavors and scents of other foods. Store your cheese in a cool, not cold, temperature. Most cheeses are great at around 34 to 38 degrees. You also need to keep your cheese covered correctly. Cheese loses its moisture and flavor when exposed to too much air, but some types of cheeses also need some amount of air to breathe and to keep it fresh. So for some cheeses, instead of cutting off all of the air supply, wrap it in wax or parchment paper, or cheese paper if you can get your hands on it. These allow some air to pass through without letting odors and other flavors through. Now, on the other hand, you can also store your cheeses based on the type. The first thing to understand when considering how to best store your cheese is what kind of cheese you have. There are different ways to categorize cheeses, but for this video, we're going to be focused on categorizing them based on their moisture content. So they may be classified as 1. Soft cheeses such as feta, brie, or gorgonzola, semi-hard cheeses like Gouda, provolone, and hard cheeses like aged cheddar and Parmesan. In general, most experts say that you should not use plastic wrappings to store your cheese. These wrap your cheese too tight and restrict too much air. It also makes too much moisture build up. Wax, parchment, or cheese paper are your best bet, along with an airtight container if needed. Also, many cheese professionals recommend storing your cheeses in the vegetable drawer or a cold spot in the back of your refrigerator unless you plan to freeze them. You should store your cheese at the same temperature it was cured at. For most cheeses, a temperature between 5 to 7 degrees will keep them fresh for a few weeks. We recommend no longer than 2 weeks. So, more specifically, how do you store your soft cheeses? Now, soft cheese can be made from cow, goat, or sheep's milk and comes from countries and places around the globe. Common types of soft cheeses include feta, brie, ricotta, cream cheese, roquefort, gorgonzola, and cottage cheese. Now, all of these cheeses will have different moisture contents. For example, cottage cheese is more runny than mozzarella. For the soft, runny ones, store them in airtight containers in your fridge. They are best used between 1 to 2 weeks of opening. However, if you start to see spots of blue, gray, or any weird colors, you should throw it all out. That sucks, but it's better than food poisoning. If you have soft cheeses that are less runny, like cream cheese or mozzarella, you can either store it in the original packaging or wrap the cheese in a layer of parchment or wax paper, followed by a loose layer of foil. If you are storing it in the fridge, you can place the wrapped cheese in an airtight container. If you're freezing them, then put the wrapped cheese in a vacuum-sealed bag to prevent freezer burn. Our quick vac cheese saver containers would be great for storing soft cheeses like cream cheese. If you have a lot to store and the space to do so, these containers are great for the freezer and the fridge. And unlike plastic bags, they won't get stuck to the surface of the freezer. They're also perfect for soft, runny cheeses, way easier to thaw out and less messy. Vacuum sealing and freezing your soft cheeses will keep their taste, flavor, and texture relatively intact for 2 to 3 weeks. You can check out the description to get our quick vac cheese savers on Amazon. Now, how do you store your semi-hard cheeses? Semi-hard cheese is one of the most commonly eaten and favorite types of cheese. These are the ones that are firm and whole but not hard and crumbly. Some examples of semi-hard cheeses include cheddar, Gouda, provolone, Edam, Havarti, etc. Now, these cheeses have less moisture than most soft cheeses. If you're going to eat them within a few days, it's fine to leave them in their plastic wrappings. However, if you're planning to store them for a few weeks, you will need to wrap them in cheese paper, parchment paper, or wax paper. Then loosely wrap them in some foil paper. Your wrapped cheese can now be stored either in the vegetable drawer or in a cold spot in the back of your refrigerator for 1 to 2 weeks. Remember, when storing semi-hard cheeses in the refrigerator for everyday use, do not wrap them in plastic wrap or too tightly to suffocate them. Cheese needs to breathe unless they're being frozen. Now, if you are freezing them, they will need to be properly wrapped to prevent freezer burn. But the thing about semi-hard cheeses is that even though they are not super soft, they can still be crushed by vacuum bags when the air is sucked out of them. So a great recommendation is to use a vacuum-sealed container that can efficiently pump air out without crushing the cheese. And guess what? We have just the thing. Our quick vac cheese saver containers are spacious enough to store your cheese without crushing them as the air is pumped out. You can check out the description to get it on Amazon. Now, freezing your semi-hard cheeses in a vacuum sealed container will preserve the taste, flavor, and texture once thawed out correctly for up to 3 to 4 months. And finally, how do you store hard cheeses? Now, hard cheese comes in a wide variety of types based on how much they have been aged. However, some of the most common hard cheeses are Parmesan, Romano, Pecorino, and Pepato. Now, these hard cheeses have less moisture to lose. If you store them in the refrigerator, they do not need airtight or vacuum sealed containers. If you're only keeping them for a few days, you can leave them in plastic wrap or the original packaging. However, if you want them to last a few weeks, then rewrap them in cheese paper, wax paper, or parchment paper and place them in a covered container. Use a container with a lid that has a vent for some amount of air to pass through. I do not recommend using airtight or vacuum sealed containers for hard cheeses in the refrigerator. These two can be kept in the vegetable jar or a cold spot at the back of the fridge. They can also be kept out of the fridge for a few days. I do not recommend more than 1 to 3 days, especially if temperatures are higher than 60 degrees Celsius. If you want to freeze your hard cheese, then these do great in vacuum containers like our Quick Vac cheese saver containers or vacuum sealed bags. They are hard enough to withstand the air suction without crumbling. Vacuum sealing and freezing your hard cheese will keep them intact, flavor and all, for 6 to 12 months depending on the type. You can check out the description for our recommended products and more articles to learn more. Foodlight is dedicated to sharing food tips and hacks, and one of our goals with our products and videos is to help to reduce food waste. And one of the best ways that you can help us is to like our video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you very much.